maybe we could shift to a little bit to technology and its role as you
Sure.
see it, as the growth of the market shapes up, the challenges exist for the manufacturer, that trust needs to be in place, and the patient care and safety needs to be in place. What technologies do you see that will automate or maybe take away the burden? You talked about the stretched nature of the pharmacy, right? There's no extra people. The processes are increasing. Specialty, critical drugs are being more prevalent and present in the market. And how can technology help that in your view?
Well, I think technology is the future for us. When we think of some of those behaviors that pharmacy departments rely on today, like RFID technology and track and trace technology, and those resident systems that we talked about, whether they're items that exist, for example, in refrigerated carousels. How does that fit into the picture? What should we think about from an interfacing point of view? How do we make sure that the product is kept in a very accessible, situation? For large integrated delivery networks, how do we assure that if one hospital has a demand and the other hospital doesn't have the product, there are things that we can do, in order to be sure that within that integrated delivery network, we can move the product around and yet track it, in the most important ways that we can from a reporting point of view. And I think that there's one other word that I'll introduce to you that I've introduced to sales teams in recent past, and that's and I hope I don't stumble when I say it, but it's interoperability. And interoperability has grown in importance in healthcare. And so when we think about technology, we think about first and foremost, have we been able to store those products in the best way that we can? And can we get the most information out of those products and out of that device, if you will, or devices, plural? Can we extract that data in a most meaningful way, right? Secondly, and it's important to every constituent along the supply chain, how do we get to the data? The data is so key. And it's what most of the participants and partners in the supply chain wrestle with the most. This interoperability is, has a wild definition. I won't read it to you. I won't bore you with it. But you'll find that term used oftentimes when we talk about Dscsa, and we talk about programs like that. But it's simply stated, those health information exchanges are really, really critical. It goes way beyond HL7. It goes way beyond, those different types of things that we've all kind of grown accustomed to through the years. And so what I think about is, how do we eliminate the redundancy of the pick, pack, and ship for the manufacturer? How do we eliminate the redundancy for the pick, pack, and ship for the distribution agents? How do we eliminate the pick, pack, and ship for central pharmacy and all those constituents that work within that environment? And how do we, I always like to say, how do we take steps away? If you don't have a lot of people, then you don't have a lot of feet. And if you don't have a lot of feet, you want to make sure that you eliminate those redundant behaviors with the pick, pack, and ship, and make it very accessible, so that an individual knows exactly where to go to get the product. And when that product is extracted from the device, whatever that device might be, that it's recorded, and that the data is readily accessible, and that we're able to report it on backup to whoever the interested constituent may be, depending on, of course, governing, guidelines, legal guidelines. And are we able to share that data in a way that is very meaningful?
I think you said it right at the end for me when you were talking about sharing. I mean, interoperability is critical. Data capture is critical, but whether it's RFID or barcode or whatever, it's getting the data to the proper systems that then can make use of that data. And I think having moving towards a state of more open systems and open data sharing, if you will, is going to just increase that whole focus on patient care and make it so that you know. The end result is what everybody's shooting for. I think it's going to require some alignment, right, with the
Right.
manufacturers, distributors, technology providers.
Sure.
But in general, I totally agree that data sharing and interoperability is where we need to focus.
So, so,
Um,
so what does that mean? So what does that mean for us then? What it means is that we have an opportunity here to address an ever-growing market with all kinds of unique and specialty needs, if you quote unquote specialty needs, um, and to be able to take charge and kind of lead the industry in being able to think about new and innovative ways to be able to do things. And we can do it at every step along the way in the supply
mhm.
chain. And I think that's what's so exciting about the growth that we've talked about.
Talk a little bit about the Dscsa. A little, you touched on it, but just maybe share some thoughts around that. As I know it's been around for a while, but maybe some of the things that you've come to understand over the past few years.
Well, I think even with the original November 2013 introduction of the program it continues to introduce new requirements, and I think all of those things are poised to make sure that we have security and reliability within the supply chain. So when I think about different aspects, manufacturers have all kinds of regulations that they need to adhere to, within the act. So does, distribution. So does, the provider setting. It reminds me of just one word. It's integrity. It's
Hmm.
adding integrity, measurement, reporting, that data exchange that we've talked about so much. And I do think that. Um, when you think about the activities that go on day to day, within the hospital pharmacy and the folks that they do business with, if they buy direct from a manufacturer and all of a sudden they return product to the manufacturer and it's deemed saleable, how is that all tracked? If it's returned to the distribution agent and it's deemed saleable, what are all of the measures and all of the reporting that has to go into place in order, to assure that it's done correctly. How do we continue to make sure that pedigree is top priority? I mean, the elimination originally, and of course, the reason for the whole act in and of itself is, the elimination of, counterfeit products or products coming from the wrong areas within the supply chain. And we've gone through in our evolution over the years, we've gone through gray market activity to
Hmm.
to counterfeit activity to just bad product that shouldn't be included, should never see the insides of a central pharmacy in a hospital ever. So I think the more that we grow, it's just like anything else. The more regulations that you'll see, there'll continue to be, changes and improvements in the act. And I think that it's all there, from a safety point of view. And I think it speaks well for both the provider and for everyone that plays, within
Sure.
the whole supply chain, all the way down to the patient.
Yeah. When in your former position, you led an innovative program around consignment and uh, kind of the integration of technologies, RFID, and software together to really drive value for your customers. Talk about how, some of the benefits that you saw, that your customers saw, and how that was able to work and really enable some growth for your organization and on the other side benefits for the customers that you were able to build it with?
Sure. Well, fairly specifically, what I dealt with from a consignment point of view had to do with a really cutting edge, approach to the market to support the area of plasma derivatives. And, plasma derivatives, everything from factor products to, IVIG to, I mean, you name it. And even snake antivenom, type products, and those types of products that required refrigeration,
Mm-hmm.
big ticket items. I mean, they're expensive products. They have to be handled well, and I think that you get a one-time savings because consignment eliminates the asset on hand that's owned by the facility itself, the provider facility, and it becomes an asset of the providing distribution agent that would be providing all of those products in a consigned fashion, not to be billed until pulled from the device, and in that case, the refrigeration device, and the different types of refrigeration devices that we could use. It was at a time when there was a big change in plasma derivatives moving from the Department of Blood Bank over to the Department of Pharmacy. The
Mm-hmm.
Department of Pharmacy had never handled these products before. It was brand new for them. Turning the inventory, looking at outdates, assuring refrigeration, getting the data, all of those important things that we've talked about that are just so essential, important to hospital pharmacies, for example. All of those things were addressed with an efficiently designed consignment program, such as what we worked with, and certainly leading the industry. So I think that consignment will continue to grow. I think as these refrigerated items continue to grow in importance and in number, these types of intelligent devices that assure RFID technology, that assure track and trace, that assure getting the data at the right time, that addresses all of those interoperability issues that we talked about a little bit. It's right on the money. Now, where do we go from here? So I think we have to look at resident systems that are in facilities. We want to eliminate redundant behavior.
Mm-hmm.
We want to eliminate steps. How can we be creative enough to be able to introduce new technologies as this market, this $300 billion market, continues to grow? And I think it'll be on all of us, to figure out how we grow those technologies and then how we introduce them. What is the value proposition that supports the introduction of these new devices? I believe that they're going to be essential. And I believe that they're going to be a very, very big part of what pharmacy will focus on in the future, whether it's in consigned fashion or whether it's just in refrigerated delivery system, still using RFID technology. I think it's going to be very important.
So, John, in closing, I guess, would there be any other statements that you'd like to add or thoughts you'd like to share as it relates to the industry, specialties pharma specifically, technology challenges? But I turn it to you before we wrap it up.
Well, thanks, Jason. And again, it's been a real pleasure to talk about one of my most favorite subjects and all of the different things, the challenges, and so forth. I'd really like to, point out that pharmacy does so much today for healthcare. We would be lost without pharmacy in healthcare. What they do for the patients, and how they address these ever-changing, disease states, and how they manage through that, and how the manufacturers are working with the introduction of these new high-tech, quote-unquote, specialty products that go through a very, specific kind of supply chain. Um, there are indeed the basics still in place, the basics that have been in place for decades as we look at pharmacy. And it is constant with the manufacturing community, the distribution community, the pharmacy itself. When asked, what do you do every day? We pick, pack, and ship. We pick, pack, and ship products to, that ultimately end up at the patient level. How do you do it? You do it on time, you do it accurate, and you do it complete at every step along the way to ensure that safety and ultimately the efficacy that patients, hope to get. We understand that pharmacy is a very basic uh, program in that they have responsibilities for budget. They have responsibilities, for housing the product in a very, very strictly enforced way. They have a responsibility for managing things like outdates and you name it. I like to think about the basics of pharmacy. Now, pharmacy, of course, is a lot more involved. I mean, you have P&T committees. You have all kinds of patient adherence issues, to think about. All of those things are the complicating factors. The one thing that I think I would leave with is that pharmacy is very basic, and they're charged with doing one thing, and that's getting important products in the most efficient way to the patient at the bedside for administration. So I continue to applaud the industry and thank them very much for what they do.
Thank you, John. Your comments have been great and super insightful as always. So we appreciate your time, and we look forward to connecting with you soon on future discussions. So thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Jason.
You bet.